So today we're going to be talking about the measures of center and variation. And the big idea for today is we're going to be comparing the mean, the median, and the mode. And yes, it's been a while since we've heard those words, or at least that you've heard these words. But basically, all of these are what they call the measure of center. So that's why when you see on the news, they get like all these data from all these people that they surveyed, and then they said, this is what most people think. Well, yeah, it's because they're using one of these numbers as a variable, or sorry, as a value that describes the answers people gave in a survey or something else. So, again, it's called the measure of center. Depending on the data that we get, either one of these could represent that data. It just depends on where it falls. So the first one that we have is the mean. Well, the mean also goes by a different name. The mean is also known as the average. So this goes back, like I said, to your middle school days. But we are starting, like I said, we're in our last unit here. Now, for the mean, aka the average. Anybody remember how to do that? No? Okay, well, here's your refresher. Here's the tough part. Look, all you have to do is add. Super difficult. Add the values. Add the values, but then you do have to do one more thing, and divide. If I could spell that carefully. And divide by the number of values. By the number of values. And so it's basically kind of like, it's what they call a balancing point of values. So the mean is a balancing point of values. So some people always say, oh, so that means like it gives me kind of the middle ground of all the data. No, it's a very different number. And so all you're going to do is you are going to add. See, I'm going to write the word mean. I'm going to be adding everything together. And let's see. If I was adding the M, the E, the A, and the N, we're pretending they're numbers. What would I divide this one by? Yeah, because there's 4 numbers that we have up there, right? So if every letter was a number, I added 4 numbers together, then I'll divide by 4. If I add 10 numbers together, then I'll divide by 10. But that's why we have our calculators that can handle these little fractions, and they're just going to get kind of long, but we're just going to set it up like this, okay? Now, there's another piece of information that can help us in describing data sets, so it's the median. Now, when we hear the word median, well, there's one word I should think of, and that is the word middle. Because that's exactly what it is. It's really just, if I look at all my numbers, which number is right in the middle? This is the median. Mean, like I said, is very different. So, well, I'm just going to write that. It's the middle number. It's the middle number. But you must arrange. You must arrange the data, so that list of numbers that they're going to give you, from least to greatest. Then find the middle. All right. So yeah, let me give you a moment to catch up with the writing there. But again, the median. First thing I'm going to do. Now, this is the only one that says arrange the data from smallest to biggest, right? From least to greatest. You should do that for all of them. Even if they ask you for mean or mode, it is actually a lot easier to just put a list of numbers in order. So always look ahead, especially on your homework today. If you see them say the word median somewhere, just start by putting the list in order, and it'll make things a little bit easier. But there is a catch, right? So let me show you a quick example. I know you're still catching up with the writing, so I'll just throw it here for those that are done. So if I give you a list of numbers and I go like this, 1, 2, 7, 9, and 11. How many numbers is that right there? 5. If I were doing mean, I would add plus, 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 all of these added together and divided by 5. What's the median? Which number is the median here? 7, because that's the number that's right in the middle. How do I know it's in the middle? Because if I cut it off right here, right at the 7, there's 2 numbers on this side, 2 numbers on that side. That's the middle. So now, here's where it gets a little interesting. What if I did this list of numbers instead? 1, 2, 7, 9, 11, 13. All right, well now how many numbers are on that list? 6 of them. So when I say go right to the middle, is there an actual middle number? No, you see the cut would happen right here. This is the middle, but there is no number there. So we would have to, and this is going to be one of the things we talk about, and we're going to put it in the notes, we need the number in the middle between the 7 and the 9. Well, what's the number between 7 and 9? Between 7 and 9? 8. 8 would actually be the median. But there's a mathematical way of doing that. Just add them up and divide it by 2, because there's only 2 numbers that I added. So again, the median, sometimes it'll be a number, right? So we draw a line right down the middle, and if you hit a number, great. If you don't hit a number, you're going to have to add them and then divide by 2. So I'm not sure where we're going to make this fit. If there are 2 numbers, add and divide by 2. All right, so there's our little note still for median. So yeah, the median means put it in order and then put a line right down the middle. Okay, cut that list in half. And if you go through a number, that's your median. If you go through 2 numbers, well then we're going to add them and divide by 2. Okay, but it takes practice and you'll see it. All right, and then there's the mode. Well, when we talk about the mode, there's only one word that comes to mind. To me, the word that comes to mind is the most. And that's why it's also important that if you put your list in order, you're going to see which number they used the most. So again, this one right here for the mode, it's the number that comes up most often. There you go. It's the number that comes up most often. Just a couple things though about it. Something you should know and be aware of. When we talk about the mode, you can have more than one. You can have more than one, or none. This is the only one where you might say, yeah, there is no mode. You're always going to have a mean. You're always going to have a median. But for a mode, you might say it has none at all. So let me show you another quick example while you're catching up with the writing there. Let's see, if I gave you a list and went 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 7, 7. Okay. All right, so check this out. In this list of numbers, right, what would be your mode? Which one? The 5. Why? Because it happened 3 times. Did any other number repeat 3 times? That would be my mode. What about this one? Remember that list that we talked about earlier? Does this one have a mode? No, because nothing repeated. Nothing was used more than once. So this would be an example of no mode. And here, I know the 4 repeated, the 7 repeated, but this one repeated the most. That's why we have these little vocab words that are going to guide us here. Mean is another word is average. Median means middle. Mode means most. And then, of course, we have what they call standard deviation, aka the spread of data. And so the only thing that we're going to do with standard deviation, this is probably the most complicated one, but we're not going to get too into it, so it won't be too bad. But when they talk about standard deviation, it is, or it's a measure It's a measure of spread. So a small standard deviation means values are close to the mean. So standard deviation is a little bit, like I said, a little bit tougher to actually find. Luckily, we're not going to find it. We're just going to mention how close we are to the mean, and then, of course, just how far apart the numbers are from each other. So spread usually just means that. How far apart are numbers from each other? So we have the little space. How far apart are numbers from each other? This is why, everybody, it's important to put your list of numbers in order, because basically I'm just going to look at, all right, who's the biggest number, who's the smallest number? Let me see how far apart they are from each other. So yes, a lot of writing there in the beginning, but now we finally get to do the math here. Okay. Yeah, how, sorry. It's basically how far apart are they from each other. And again, we're going to mention a little bit more of that in the next little page, or in the next page, but when we're looking at this one here, we're really just going to look at, okay, what's my biggest number on the list? What's my smallest number in the list? And I want to know how far apart they are from each other. That's really all we're going to do, okay? We just don't have more room to write it, but I think it's coming up on the next page. It also goes by the name of range, very similar to range. Okay, so I'm just going to move it up a little bit. I'm sure it's okay. Just so that I can start reading, and you can start reading it as well. An amusement park hires students for the summer. The students' hourly wages are shown in this table. So remember, this is how much they get paid by the hour, right? Maybe they're working at Knott's, Magic Mountain, somewhere. And this is really old, right? Because look what they're getting paid. That doesn't happen anymore. But anyways, find the mean, the median, the mode of the hourly wages. Which measure of center best represents the data? All right, well, I saw this word right away, which means when I see them use that word, I'm going to do something first. I'm going to write this list in order. Right now, it's just kind of too spread around, okay? So do me a favor, look at the list very carefully there. Which one is the smallest number on the list? 825, okay, so I'm going to mark this one already. I'm going to write it down, 825, comma. All right, there's another 825. You can't leave numbers out. You got to write all of them. So and I'm going to write 825 again. All right, what's next after 825? 845, that sounds good. And there's only one of them. So there's 845. All right, after 845, it looks like 865 would be next. 865. 875 would be next. They're making 10 cents more here. 875. 910 would be next. So 910. Whoop, 910. 925. Someone's making 925 an hour. And then someone's making $16.50. That's a lot more than anybody else. All right, but okay, we're ready here. Now, they want me to find 3 different things. Keep that in mind. They want me to find 3 different things. So, yes, try not to write too big. Here we go. First one, the mean. So, if I'm working on the mean, what do I have to do with all these numbers? Add them all up. And then, how many numbers were on this list? 8. So, I'm going to add all of them up and then divide by 8. All right, well, look, I'm not going to write them all. I think you get the idea. 825 plus 825 plus 845 plus 865. And we're going to run out of space. So I'm just going to say dot, 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 because you'll do it with the calculator. all the way till we get to 16.5 or 50. And then you said, I'm going to divide all of them by 8. So remember, just because I didn't write them all doesn't mean you're not going to type them into your calculator. You need to type them all in. So let's get the calculator ready here. Remember, press that fraction button, make it easier. I already know the bottom number is 8. That's the easy one. All right, but you have to be very careful that you don't mess up on one of these decimals. So 8.25 plus 8.25 plus 8.45 plus, what was the next one? 865. Next one is 875 plus 910. I'm just trying to make sure. I'm double checking that I'm not missing one. Okay, I got that one, I got that one, I got that one. 925 is next. Plus, last one, 16.50. So you do have to be very careful. All right, I want to make sure I got it right. Did you guys get the same thing? 965, okay, well, so then the mean. We just found out that the average, right, payment that people are getting by the hour is $9.65. That's the average. All right, well, now they said, well, find me the median. Well, the median's a little bit different. Now they said, give me the median. Remember, this one does not require a lot of work. You already have the list ready to go. For the median, all you have to do is go to the middle. So here's how I like to kind of do it. I like to work my way in, right? So they go together, they go together, they go together. And so the middle is actually, oh man, I lost it again. Like this, like this, like this, like that. There's the middle. So did I actually go through a number? No, we didn't go through a number. I've got two numbers to look at then. And what did we say we're going to do with these two numbers? Because there's two numbers, what do I have to do? Add and divide by? Just by 2, yeah. Because I'm only adding these two numbers. So 865 plus 875 divided by 2. Anybody have that number for me? 8.7, so $8.70. We'll throw that extra little zero because we're talking about money for these. All right, well, there's my median. All right, and then, of course, they said, well, give me the mode. All right, well, mode just means which one happened the most. So did any of these numbers repeat?
Yes.
Yeah, which one? Yeah, the $8.25. It's the only one that repeated twice. And you might say, yeah, but it's in the beginning. That doesn't matter. Remember, for mode, it's, hey, who just repeated the most? All right, well, we've answered everything they wanted. The question now is, all right, well, which measure of center best represents the data? So who is the one that represents the data the best? Well, think about it. 965 would be right here. There's 965. 870 that you got earlier is right here. There's 870. And then 825, well, that's over here. 825 is right there. Which one of these three numbers would better represent all the numbers that we see here? Which one do you think? The 825, the 870, or the 965? The 825, now is that a good representation of all the numbers that you see here? No, you're too far to the end, right? So it's not a good representation because it's too close to the beginning. You got other numbers that are way bigger than that. Well, remember, 865 is not an option. I've got 965, I've got 870 and 825. These are my only three choices. Yeah, the 870. Why is 965 also not a good choice? Yeah, it's way too high. Look at how many numbers are behind it. That's way too many. We want something, that's why it's called the central measure, right? We want something to be closer to the middle of everybody, right in between. So yeah, 870, the median best represents the data. And is it always going to be the median? No, It just depends on the information we get. But again, that's why we call it a measure of central tendency or something like that. Or it's just a measure of center. This one is kind of in the middle of all the data. If it's too far to one side or too far to the other, it doesn't really represent the information too well. All right, well, now look. They said the park hires, let me move it up now a little bit more. The park hires another student at an hourly wage of $8.45. How does this additional value affect the mean, the median, and the mode? Well, remember, they just hired a kid who now is going to get paid $8.45. Well, look at where $8.45 would be. It's on the lower end, right? Compared to where we said the middle was, they're adding one on this side of it. So, first of all, they said, well, how does it affect the mean? Well, remember, you had already done the mean before, right? We had all these numbers earlier when we had done these. So unfortunately, we kind of have to go through it again. 825, 825, 845. But remember, now we added a new one. A new 845 to the list. But then everything else stays the same. So we did add a number to it, all the way to 1650. But let me ask you this. What number am I dividing by now? Remember, what did I divide by earlier? 8, but I only added how many more numbers? One more. So then I'm going to divide all of this by? 9. By 9. All right, well, unfortunately, here we go. We got to do this again. The mean is always it's the only one that takes a while. Okay? I think there's a way that we can do this a little faster. We'll try with the next problem. That might save us a little time. 825 plus 8.25, fraction, plus 845. Remember, here's the brand new 845 that we had to add to it. 865, 875. So let's see. 875, the 910, the 925, and the 1650. And I'm going to divide by 9 now because now there's 9 numbers underneath. All right, well, there's my new average. Because it's money, I'm going to call it 9.5. All right, everybody, make your kindergarten teachers proud. It's either 51 or 52. And if there's a 6 next to it, then I'm going with 52. So what happened to the mean? Did the mean go up or did the mean go down? It went down, right? It actually dropped. So, yeah, the mean dropped. Well, it makes sense. We added a number that was on this side, on the lower end. That's why the mean dropped. So then, what about the median? So we had this list of numbers, right? But when I had this list of numbers, I added this 845 right here. So if you added that 845 to the list, well, let me see. Let me make my list again just so you could see it. Remember, we're not adding this time, but it's 825. Remember, it's 845. There's the brand new 845 we added to the list. Normally, I would just make one nice list at the top with some space, but we didn't have a lot of room here. All right, here comes the rest. 865, 875, 910. So that's the only thing. They're not difficult questions. They're a little time consuming though. All right, well, there's the new one we added to the list. All right, well, who's the median? Remember, cut it. Put a line right down the middle of your list. So just do this, right? Work your way in. So where would I draw my line right down the middle? Remember, this is what helps. Use your fingers. Go this, 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 this. So you see, who am I putting a line right down the middle on? So then there's my median. My median is $8.65. And then the good thing is, since I have this list, everybody, I can now answer the new question here. They said, well, what about the mode? Did the mode change? Well, who repeated the most? 825 still, but just that one? No, and who else? Yeah, because now I have 2 of those too. 845, and they repeated the same amount. That's why I have to write both of them. That's why we said a mode. We could have one, we could have two, we could have a bunch of them. So there's my mean, there's my median, there's my modes, plural, because we have two of them. But the question was, by adding a number that was a little bit smaller than the median, right? What did it do to my mean, and what did it do to my median? Because look at what it was before. It was 870, and now it's 865. It was 965 for the mean, and now it's 952. So what happened to the numbers? They got smaller, right? They got lower because I put in a lower number. And that's it. That's all we have to mention. Did the mode change?
No.
Well, it was still 825, but we did add a new one, right? So we just added a new one. So the mode really didn't change, but the main thing we want to look at is the fact that the mean and the mode decrease. They got smaller, so we like to say in math that they decrease. The median, sorry, thank you. That's why I was like, wait, something's not right. Thank you. The mean and the median decrease because we brought in a smaller value. Right? We brought a number in from the lower end. So because I bring a number in the lower end, well, then my median shifted lower. My mean shifted lower as well. So remember, we're just looking at data points. We're looking at numbers that they're going to throw at us. And it's really us just deciding, okay, well, how is it going to affect these numbers? So what would have happened if you know how this one we added 845, right, on our list? What if instead I had added $10 and not the 845? What would have happened to my mean and my median? They would have increased because I added a number on the larger side, right? So it makes sense. If I add a number on the larger side, well, then these numbers are going to get bigger. If I add a number towards the lower end, well, then my numbers should get smaller because everything's shifting. All right, so flip it over. Flip it over. We have another little page there. So now we're going to talk about something called an outlier, okay? So an outlier is basically a number that doesn't fit the rest of the data, right? So it is a value that stands out. A value that stands out from the rest. Like you look at all your numbers and they're like, whoa, what happened to that one? Right? It's way too big or it's way too small compared to everybody else. So that's what an outlier is. Then, of course, we have something called the measure of variation. So again, an outlier means it's a number that's too small compared to everybody or too big compared to everybody. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the measure of variation. Again, this is just that standard deviation thing that we talked about. Standard deviation. And interquartile range, which is kind of weird that we bring this up now because we're really not going to use it yet, but I guess they want us to just introduce it. So measure variation, it's just going to deal with standard deviation and interquartile range, but I think the whole point of that is this. This is the big word. Outlier and range are the big words for this page. And again, remember, this is the first section in chapter 11. So that's why there's a lot of vocab here right now. So I think that's what it is, just a lot of introduction. But the range is the most important one because here's how you find it. The range is equal to the highest value. That's why we put a list in order. Minus the lowest value or the least value. That's it. So all I'm going to do is some basic subtraction. Little subtraction right between, and that's it. But again, that's why it's important to put your list of numbers in order. So, for example number 2, it says, hey, we're going to use the same numbers from earlier. And if you notice, they are the exact same numbers from earlier. So I'm going to take a little moment and put them back in order the way we did earlier. It was 825, 825. And if you're wondering, Mr., we already did all this. Yeah, I know. 825, we're just using the same list so that we don't have to do the same calculations over and over, okay? What was it? 845 was next. So let me just make sure I've got all of them again. 865, 875. Again, we're just rewriting this list. We want to put it in order for a reason. So 910, 925, and 1650. All right. So that takes care of all the numbers, I believe. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just want to make sure I didn't leave one out. Question number 1. Identify the outlier. So when you look at this list of numbers, was there any number that you saw and you're like, whoa, that one doesn't match up with the rest? So is there a number that would be considered an outlier in this list? Yeah, look at that. 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 9, 9. And then all of a sudden it's 16. That's the outlier right there. That number doesn't really fit with the rest. It kind of messed with our data a little bit. So when they say identify the outlier, well, the outlier is the 1650. So there's that answer. And then they said, all right, well, now that you did that, let's recalculate. So now they want you to do the mean, the median, and the mode again, but without the 1650. All right, well, we had already done it before, so here we go again. The mean, I'm going to add the 825 again, the 825. I'm going to add all these numbers until I get to what last number, though? What's the last number I'm going to add on this list? Yeah, the 925. Remember, they said, take out the outlier. They said, get it out of there. So I'm stopping it at 925. And if I'm stopping it at 925, what am I going to divide by? So count up your lists. What am I going to be dividing this one by? 7 this time. All right, let's take a quick moment. So here we go for maybe like the third time now again, right? Again, is it difficult? No. Is it time consuming? Yeah, of course. Yes, it is. All right, so here we go, 825. And then they had to choose money, so that's what made it a little bit tougher. Plus the 845, plus the 865, plus the 875, plus the 910, plus the 925, and then we divide it all by 7. All right, you let me know if you got the same. Yes? Did I forget something there? No? 867? And remember, you're rounding. There's money right there. You always do two numbers after. So my answer is either 867 or 868. That's the next number after 67. Well, it's just a 1 next to it, so I'm staying with 67. All right, so we have our mean, $8.67. Now, you see, that makes a little more sense now. See, that would be like right here somewhere. All right, well, now they said, well, give me the median. Well, the median means give me the middle. But remember, there is no 1650 anymore. 1650 is gone. So when I do the middle, I'm just, like I said, I like to use my fingers here. We've got that one goes with that one. They go together. They go together. And now, look at that. Who's your median? 865. I didn't have to do that division by 2. I only hit one number. That's it. So at least it made that easier. And then, of course, they said, well, give me the mode. Well, what's still your mode here? It's the only number that repeated twice. Remember, without the outlier, of course. 825. So it says, well, how does the outlier affect the mean, the median, and the mode? All right, well, you have these numbers. Look, my mean was 867. It used to be 965, right? My median was 865, but it used to be 870. So again, what happened to the mean and the median? Decreased because we took out what? The biggest number. Yeah, we took out the biggest number that was on the list. So again, by taking out a certain value, it changes. So the outlier has no effect. Has no effect. Well, who's the only one that did an effect? Which number stayed the same out of all three of these? Yeah, so the mode. The mode doesn't really get affected by much, right? It's all about repetition for that one. So the outlier has no effect on the mode, but the mean and median decreased since we took out a large outlier. So of course numbers got smaller, right? We took out the biggest number on the list. Well, yeah, of course my numbers were going to get a little smaller. And then it says, well, describe one possible explanation for the outlier. Here's where we just bring in anything that we know, common sense, right? TV shows, anything we've watched. So when you look at this list of numbers, what could it mean? Why is someone making 1650? They're too advanced. Maybe they have a higher education, right? Maybe something like that. What else? Who usually makes more money, like let's say in a business or in a company? A manager. Maybe they're the manager, right? Maybe that's what it is. So there's so many different things. And again, this is just a random little random question, sorry. It's an opinion question. Maybe he or she is the manager. Right? That could be a reason why they're making 1650. Or they have a degree, right? They're educated, they have a degree, so maybe they got special training, maybe they've been working longer. There's so many things that we can write here, right? Maybe they have special training or a degree. So again, we're not going to write all of them because there's so much that we can write in there. All right, so questions. And again, you are going to get some of these like random little opinion questions. So just kind of think outside the box and go, man, why is that person making so much money compared to everybody else? Well, it usually means they're a manager or something. Okay? All right, which brings us to the last problem on this page here. So, for example, number 3.
Give me a sec. Rodriguez.
Okay, no problem. E105. Yeah. All right, so for example number 3, it says, 2 reality cooking shows select 12 contestants. 12 contestants each, sorry. The ages of the contestants are shown in the tables. So, reality show A got 12 people, right? Reality show B has 12 people also. So reality show here. The ages of the contestants are shown in the tables. Find the range of the ages for each show. Well, don't forget, we have show A and we've got show B. What we're lucky is they didn't say the word mean, so we don't have to add a bunch of numbers together, right? All right, well, all they want is the range for each one. And when we hear the word range, everybody, look what we said. All I'm going to do for range is what? Come on, keep the math simple. It says range. What am I going to do? What does this symbol mean? That's it. That's all I have to do.
Subtract.
Yeah, just subtract. That's it. But I need the biggest number and I need the smallest number. All right, so let's look at range here. All I'm going to do is subtract, so let's get the subtraction going. All right, well, show A. Here's show A. Who's the youngest person on that list? 19-year-old. Okay, there's the lowest. All right, who's the oldest? 31. There it is. There's the highest. Which means, what number am I writing first? 31 or 19? Whoa, 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 whoa. You read your note. It says highest minus the lowest. So 31 minus the 19. So be careful there. Remember, we want positive numbers here. All right, well, what's 31 minus 19? Let's type it in. 12. There's my range. So that means they have that spread of 12. Meaning from lowest to highest, it's a spread of 12. Now, show B. All right, let's talk about show B here. Now, for show B, who is the oldest? Maybe I should start there. Who is the oldest? They got a 48-year-old in there. All right, so there's the high, which means that should be the first number, right? 48. All right, who's the youngest in that group?
19.
Another 19. Okay, so there's the lowest. So there's my 19. All right, do a little subtraction there. 48. 29. Okay, thank you. So who has the larger range? B. Who has the lowest range? A. So look at the question. After the first week, the 25-year-old is voted off to show A, and the 48-year-old is voted off show B. How does this affect the range of the ages of the remaining contestants? Before I move on, I was hoping they were going to bring it up. This one right here has the larger spread. This one would be the lowest spread. They also like to use that word, and so I'm bringing it up because I think it does show up in your assignment. So I just want to throw that out there, okay? Now, for this last question, they still just said the key word was, hey, we just want range. That's it. So here we go again. Show A, show B. We know we're subtracting for range. All right, but keep in mind, you got to look at your list of numbers for show A. For this one, they said, okay, well, you know what? For show A, the 25-year-old got voted off from show A, so that means the 25-year-old is out. Does that change my range? No, look, it's still 31 minus 19, so it's still 12. So no change. Because the lowest number or the highest number, nothing happened to it. There's no change with show A. So it's unchanged. What about show B, though? In show B, they said the viejito, right, the 48-year-old is the one that got kicked out. So if the 48-year-old got kicked out of show B, well, then is it going to affect my range? Yeah, that was my highest number. My lowest number is still 19, so look, I'm going to throw that 19 in there because that's still the lowest. But who's the new high number? Yeah, the 32 is the new high right there. So 32. And 32 minus 19, let's see, 32 minus 19, that's 13. Look at how much it dropped. It was at 29 before. Well, remember, that 48 was kind of an outlier. Most of these people are in their 20s. Most of them. That 48 was way out there. So, yeah, show B dropped. Right? The range dropped since the highest value was taken out. So again, I hope you're seeing a pattern that, hey, when you're working, oh, we brought in a bigger number. Well, then things will get bigger. If you take out a big number, well, then you took out the biggest number, then things are going to get smaller. And vice versa. If I take out the lowest number, well, then things are probably going to get bigger. Okay, so again, just the effect of how some of these things, or some of the effects that it can have. Now, there is one last page that they wanted us to do, but when you look at it, watch, flip it over. Watch out, wow, that's a lot of calculation, okay? So what we're going to do instead, for a little more practice, flip it over. We're going to go to page 11 instead, just to do a little practice, okay? Because that one was, woo, a little out there. And we still have a little time, so we're almost done. All right, so we're going to continue. We're going to do more examples because I don't think that was enough. So look at this one. They gave me this list of numbers. Let me ask you, is that list in order? So what should be the first thing I do? Yeah, fix it. Let's put it in order. Smallest number is 2, but I have 1, 2, 3 of them. Okay, write it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Whoop. 3. What's the next number after that?
3.
3, and there's only 1. 4, but there's 2 of them. So make sure you write 2 of them. Notice how I like to underline them as a reminder that I already used it, so I don't look at it again. Or some people like to cross them out. Do something like that. The next number would be what?
5.
5, okay, and then 7, and finally 16. All right, if I had to ask you, who would be the outlier? Yeah, because there's a bunch of 2s, so that's okay, right? But 16 would kind of be out there. All right, so they said, find me the mean, the median, and the mode, and then tell me which one best represents all of them. All right, well, here we go. The one that takes a while. The mean. Because what am I going to do to find the mean? Add them up. At least they're not decimals, right? It's going to be a little faster. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus all the way to number 16. Question to you is, what are we going to divide by on this one? So count them up. 9, right? All right, take a moment, type it in. Once you have it, let me know. You already got it, Jason? What'd you get? A perfect 5? Yeah, all right, nice. All right, well, there's our mean, everybody. We got our 5. All right, median time. Remember, median means go right to the middle. So cut this list in half. Literally draw a line right down the middle. So again, this is what I've seen people do. They go, that one with that one, that one with that one, that one with that one. They kind of keep track. They're trying to find who's right in the middle. And who's right in the middle?
4.
There it is. I don't have to do extra work. 4, done. Remember, if it were 2 numbers, then I would add and divide by 2. Okay, we got a median. There's the 4. And do we have a mode on this one?
Yes.
Yeah, which one is the mode?
2.
2. I understand the 4 repeated twice, but remember the 2 repeated 3 times. So the mode would be 2. All right, everybody. So the question now is, right, out of these 3 numbers of central measure, which one best describes the information? Well, let's look at where everybody fell, okay? The mode is like right here. Would that be a good number to represent everybody? No, because it's too far to the end. This one was a 4. Well, yeah, that's pretty much right in the middle, so that looks good. And then the other one is 5 over here. But notice, when I look at the 5, there's only 2 data points on this side and a bunch of them on this side. So which number represents this data better?
4.
The 4, so the median, right? So that's our answer here. The median best describes the center. And really, because I'll tell you right now, the 16 is an outlier. Not that you have to write all this anymore, but it's good to make it a note. The 16 is an outlier and pulled the mean in its direction. All right, maybe I wrote too much now, but the fact that you realize, hey, the median makes more sense because it's kind of in the center of all the information. If it makes more sense, well then that's what we use. Okay? All right, well, we have a list again. So we're going to try one more here. Well, I guess we'll do the next 2. The other one's just range, so it's a little bit easier. All right, but let's practice one more time here. So we have a list of numbers. Is it in order? No. All right, so who's the smallest one here? So 44. And remember, this table shows the masses of 8 gorillas, so how much they weigh, right? So there's a gorilla that weighs 44. What's the next one on the list? See, I have a 157. Well, 157 is smaller, no? Yeah, so 157. 158, I guess, is next. 159. Remember, underline them, do something so you don't forget that you already used it. What's next after that? 160, and it looks like they used that one twice, right? So twice. And then 161. And you see, once you do the underlining, it does get easier because then your eyes know to just look at the what isn't underlined. All right, so there's my list of numbers. All right, I got to ask you, who's the outlier here?
44.
Yeah, the 44. So I think that question does come up later. We'll answer it later. All right, well, here we go. The mean. That means I'm going to do what with all these numbers? Add them up. Here we go, everybody. One more time. 44 plus 157 plus dot, 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 plus 162 all the way to the end. But how many numbers were on this list? 8 of them. Then I'm going to divide by 8. All right, take a moment. Type it in. Yell it out once you have it so that we can move on. So as soon as you have it, and it's going to be a decimal, so give me at least one decimal place just to get a better idea. So type it in. Again, take a moment to do it. We're almost done here. I just wanted to practice a couple more before you attack today's homework. Okay, anybody have it yet? Okay, 109, is that what I heard? It seems kind of small because all the numbers are over 150, so I don't think it'd be 109. 155, okay, I'm hearing 155 now. All right, well, again, that's why we have to be very careful. That's the only tough part, right? Typing them in carefully. All right, well, let's see here. Looks like we have a lot of different answers. So 44 plus 157 plus 158 plus 159 plus 160 plus another 160, 161 plus 162. So look, that means I have 1161 on top, and I'm going to divide that by 8. So I got 145.1. There's my mean. Okay, you got to be careful. Now, I did it a little bit different. All I did was just add the top numbers first, just so I could add it, right? Just so I could double check. Then I divided it by 8. Same thing. All right, well, now I need the number right in the middle, everybody. So I need the median. So what is my number right in the middle? Well, let's see. That one with that one, 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 which means the middle, look, that's where I would make my cut. Did I go through a number? No, that means I got to use these two numbers. And what am I going to do with those two numbers? Add them up. So 159 plus 160. And then I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay? So let's do that. 159 plus 160. And then I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay? I've got 159.5. So there's the median. Do we have a mode in this one, though? Do we have a mode? Yeah, we do. Which one is the mode? Yeah, the 160. It's the only number that repeated twice. All right, well, they didn't say, tell me who best describes it. They just said, hey, find them. Okay, we found them. They didn't ask a follow-up question. Right here it says identify the outlier. So who's the outlier here? 44. So the outlier is 44. Think about it. Why would there all of a sudden maybe be a gorilla that weighs 44 compared to everybody else? Yeah, maybe it's a baby. Maybe it's a baby gorilla. That makes more sense. Because everybody else is the same weight except that one must be a little baby gorilla. All right, so there's my outlier. And we even gave a reason for it. Oh, they actually wanted a reason. We'll just say, it's a baby gorilla. All right, but then they said, well, how does that outlier affect the mean, the median, and the mode? Well, remember what we said. Now, we don't have to redo it. That's the good thing. We don't have to redo the math. But let me ask you this. If I were to take out that little baby one, that little number, what do you think would happen to these numbers right here? Because the mode is the same, right? Mode, if I take out that 44, it's still 160. So the mode is the same. But what's going to happen to the median and the mean if you take out the smallest number on the list? Then what's going to happen to the median and the mean? It would say again? Increase? Well, it's because it's a small number that my median and my, right, everything decreased because it was that. But if I were to take it out, then that means the smallest number is gone. Well, then everything is going to shift bigger because you just took out the smallest number. But what did it cause? You're right. The median and the mean are smaller due to the 44, due to the outlier. So because it's there, my numbers are smaller. But if I were to take it out, then everything should get bigger because there is no more little number anymore. Okay? All right, and then we'll end it with this one here. They said, give me the range for each one, and then compare your results. So here's Team A and their heights. So how do I find the range for this one? Well, again, just tell me basics. For the range, what's the math I'm going to do? Subtract, get a subtraction. Here's my range for this one, where again, I'm going to just subtract. All right, so what's the first thing I look at on Team A?
Highest.
The highest. So who's the tallest person in Team A? 78, right? It looks like that one. Do a quick check. Yeah, 78 inches tall. And who's the shortest? Who's the chaparrito right there?
48.
Yeah, 48, man, a 4-footer. All right, so 48. So what's the range for this one? 30. So yeah. So if you stand the chaparrito at one end and you go by height, that's like 30-inch difference right there. Okay? What about for the other one? Who's the tallest? 70. Okay, so 70 is the tallest. Who's the shortest?
49.
Yeah, it looks like 49 is the shortest. So 49. All right, and if you subtract those, what's the range for this one? 21. So who has more spread? Yeah, Team A, right? Team A has more spread. Team A has a larger spread because the range is larger. So remember, range and spread kind of go along. And there you go. So we're going to stop it there, give you a little bit of time there. You still have some time before the bell. Remember, it's a minimum day schedule for you to work on the homework. Remember, there is no classwork today. So take out the homework that you just picked up, and let's start working on some of this mean, median, mode stuff. Okay? And if you have any questions, please ask.